is in its final stretch. State Senators Troy Carter and Karen Carter Peterson have fought a tough and oftentimes heated campaign. Each says they'll be the strongest voice for New Orleans and the entire 2nd District in Washington. Tonight, the Eyewitness News gives you one final chance to hear from both of them before Election Day.
From Channel 4's Eyewitness News, this is a Campaign 2021 special, The Race for Congress.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight to talk about the issues in this very important runoff race for the 2nd Congressional District seat between State Senators Troy Carter and Karen Carter Peterson. First of all, we want to say congratulations to both of the candidates for making the runoff. We're doing this by Zoom tonight, so they'll be behind me on the screen. You can see the two candidates there. Here's how the debate's going to work tonight. We'll start with a round of questions that both candidates will have a chance to answer. Then we'll give them each time about a minute and a half to answer each other's questions, or a couple of questions. We'll also hold you to the time limit. You'll hear this sound. It's a ding. There it is. When it's your time is up, so if you can, please stick to that. We'd appreciate that. Now, before we get to some of the questions, I want to talk to you both, and I want you to tell me why you think you're the most qualified to represent the 2nd Congressional District. Since both of you are Democrats with similar voting records and have been allies on a number of issues up in Baton Rouge, what separates you two? What separates you from Senator Carter, and what separates you from Senator Peterson? We'll start with Senator Peterson, and then we'll have Senator Carter answer.
Well, thank you, Eric and WWL, for hosting this debate. It's certainly been my honor to be trusted by the people of Louisiana to fight for them in the Louisiana legislature. Right now, I think what separates me from my opponent is that we need a bold and courageous leader in Washington. I believe that this election is about right versus wrong. It's wrong to stand with the oil companies while their pollution is killing our residents in Cancer Alley. It's wrong to say that you are for health care for all and universal health care, but you don't strongly support Medicare for all. It's wrong to say that you are for safe streets, but you won't strongly support criminal justice reforms. So I say, if elected the first Black woman to represent this district, I will fearlessly fight for racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and criminal justice reform, because the people deserve a congresswoman that's going to serve with integrity, that just won't go along to get along, and will fight for them every single day. And that's what I've done. I pledge to you and to all the people watching, all voters, that I'll never forget who I am, where I came from, and that I'll always speak truth to power. And I will shake things up to get things done for the people of this district.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's get over to Senator Carter.
My opponent began by answering the question for me. She started again by doing what every newspaper has already said isn't true. She's starting by telling those falsehoods. And it's unfortunate, because I've lived and worked my career being honest, courageous, and working for people. She says that I'm not for criminal justice reform. Yet I authored several bills and supported the complete package of criminal justice reform for John Bel Edwards. I, along with Senator J.P. Morrell, authored and passed one of the last vestiges of the Jim Crow era in getting rid of unanimous juries. I have fought for making sure that we have higher standards of police training. My opponent suggests that I haven't done that. My opponent suggests that I don't stand with people that have been afflicted by carcinogens from plants in the river parishes. Yes, she knows I have a robust plan to address those issues. She knows that I've met with residents. She knows that I plan to work with the Biden administration to make sure that we have EPA enforce the rules to make sure that people in the communities are safe, so people don't have to die for their jobs. She knows that I have a strong record on women's rights. She knows that I've passed legislation relative to mandating that hospitals make cancer patients aware of their options when having to have mastectomies. You know, it's really sad and desperate that in our opening statement, you begin by telling the same lies that the Advocate, the Times-Picayune, the Tribune, and all the other fact checkers have said are blatantly untrue.
We'll have time to talk about that. Senator Peterson, on your campaign website, you've criticized your opponent for, quote, fully supporting the New Orleans Police Department and for opposing defunding the police. You have since said that you're not in favor of defunding the police, but with so much crime in this city, especially with all the shootings we've had. A 14-year-old boy was found shot near A.L. Davis Park on Monday. Then today there was a man killed in Algiers. There are so many carjackings. What is the criticism you have for your opponent supporting the NOPD?
This, Eric. It seems like every day we keep losing people and Black people to senseless police violence. Public safety is really important in our community. And I'll just say that this, in my opinion, that there are seemingly different approaches and standards when it comes to officers responding to incidents with Black people versus white people. We need comprehensive criminal justice reform. We also need to keep people safe. And I think that it involves not reinvestment. It involves a reinvestment in the criminal justice system. What we need to do is reimagine public safety. We need to ban assault weapons. We need to make sure that we support services before young people get engaged in criminal behavior. The educational system in our city needs improvement, no question about that. I've been a proud supporter of public school teachers and students. And if we fix the educational system, that's the biggest anti-poverty program. And it's also the biggest program to minimize public crime in our community. And so, it's about getting to these young people who are committing many of the crimes in our community and embracing them and supporting them with the services that they need.
Senator Peterson, let me interrupt you right here. I still don't know why there's criticism for supporting the NOPD. I don't understand that.
Okay, so here's the problem. My opponent, he supported stop and frisk policies when he was on the city council. I think that's wrong, right? People are hurting right now and they feel afraid in our communities. Crime continues to plague our streets. Of course, I support the New Orleans Police Department. Everybody deserves to be safe. I will fight in Congress for safer communities. I'm proud to have the support of Mayor LaToya Cantrell, who appointed Chief Ferguson. We need to invest in policies that actually work rather than attempt to militarize our police force. I would push for more investments in community policing, build trust between the community and the police, and invest in resources for the police to be properly able to do their jobs in patrolling our neighborhoods. But it requires sensible gun safety reforms and also getting these guns off of our street, expanding background checks, not doing what's happening at the Louisiana legislature right now, which is allegedly constitutional concealed carry. We need to stop that horrible SB 118.
All right. The bell went off, Senator Peterson. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
Senator Carter, I do want your response on this.
Disingenuous, because in all of my opponent's flyers, she suggested I stand with police and against people, that somehow alleging that I called our young people predators. Well, I have 2 Black sons. I'm a father of 2 Black sons, and it suggests that I am not supportive of getting rogue police officers off the street. As I've suggested, there's an intersection between criminal justice reform and public safety. My opponent seems to think it's only to bash and to utilize the fear of people by saying that I stand with police. Even the President, Biden, and Senator Bernie Sanders have said that we should smart fund, not defund. We should make sure that we stand with good police officers while we prosecute the bad ones. But my opponent has sent out mailers. She sent out tweets. She's even doing a television commercial that's patently wrong. And tonight, she waffles her words because she's not able to back them up because she knows they're a lie.
All right, on Tuesday, the former Minneapolis police officer accused in the murder of George Floyd was convicted on all 3 charges against him. The Minnesota Attorney General said this was not justice, rather accountability. I would like your opinion on that. I'd also like to know, this is just a personal thing, if either one of you has ever been racially profiled by the police or any other authority, and if so, what was that experience like? Senator Carter, you first.
First of all, what happened was justice. It was accountability. It was both. A police officer who clearly acted outside of the line of being lawful was brought to justice. And we should see more of that because we've seen so many cases where that hasn't happened, where young Black men fell victim of a rogue police officer who violated their civil rights, their human rights, and took their lives, and many times walked free. We're very happy to see that justice was served, that there was due process, and the jurors agreed that he was guilty. And in my case, yes, I have been racially profiled. Every day I wake up, I'm a Black man in America. So I'm very sympathetic to what we as African American men have to face when we drive our cars, when we go to the grocery store, when we walk our dogs, when we jog along the levee. We're looked at differently. I've got 2 sons, and when they leave the house every day, I pray for them. And I have to tell my children, son, make it home alive. If you come across a rogue cop, just make it home alive. We have to reform our system so no one is racially profiled. No young Black man should have to be afraid when they see a police officer coming for fear that their rights will be violated.
Senator Peterson, same question.
Yeah, Eric, I'm grateful for this week's verdict, but we should be clear that verdict was not true justice. It was accountability for Officer Chauvin. There's nothing that can give true justice to George Floyd or his family because he's not alive. He was murdered. The criminal justice and policing systems, they struggle to protect Black lives every day because they weren't designed to do that. The system is broken. And that's why we have to reform them from the ground up, starting with ending qualified immunity and chokeholds. Let's start with that. But we can't stop there. We also need to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and we also need to pass the BREATHE Act to invest in evidence-based public safety infrastructure and make significant investments in our people, like education and community programming.
And like I asked Senator Carter, have you ever been racially profiled, Senator?
In Louisiana.
Start over again, because we cut off your mic for a second.
Yeah, I don't remember ever being racially profiled, but I'm a Black woman in the Deep South in Louisiana, and we always have it hard.
All right. I asked Senator Peterson a question about her campaign. Senator Carter, your campaign war chest is filled with contributions from business and labor. Do you support President Biden's efforts to move U.S. energy away from fossil fuels and toward renewable clean energy? And if so, what would you do to protect all the jobs in Louisiana that are so dependent on oil and gas? And much of our budget is dependent on oil and gas. Republicans have said this would be a disaster for Louisiana.
It would be a disaster if it was done overnight, as my opponent suggested it should. I think the prudent thing would be to identify ways to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels, recognizing the importance of moving to a cleaner, greener economy. But that has to be done thoughtfully. That has to be done with the processes that allow us to have a one-for-one job match. We can't do it overnight. We can't employ the tactics of just shutting down without having the ability to stand up economies. But we also simultaneously have the ability, and we should employ, and I will, working with the EPA, make sure that we utilize the technologies that are in place, like carbon capture, to make sure that we're making plants safe. It's not an either-or proposition. It's a matter of enforcement. And if we go into the plants and we go into them and recognizing that with third-party monitors, independent monitors, I might add, we utilize the early warnings and the safety from the inside to make sure that there are no shortcuts being taken, shortcuts that oftentimes cause great harm to neighborhoods. So utilizing new technology, we make these plants safe for communities. We recognize the incredible significance of our oil and gas in Louisiana. 20% of our strategic reserve is right here in Louisiana that not only protects us, but it's national security for our world. We have to be mindful and not play the word game and try to play on people's fears. The reality is thoughtful leadership suggests that we can get to a cleaner, greener world. We can start to wean ourselves off fossil fuels.
All right.
We have to do as the president suggests, we do it in a
Thank you, Senator Carter. Senator Peterson, your response.
People are dying. Let's start with that. Climate change and pollution are the crisis of our lifetime. In the petrochemical industry, who has been in Louisiana, it needs to be transitioned out. We can't just talk about it. That's not cliche. Those aren't just words. That is real. And the problem is we've been kicking the can. The people of the 2nd Congressional District, especially in Cancer Alley, have been suffering with cancer-causing pollutants. in this district. And I was recently with some of the members of Rise St. James organization. They have been on the front lines fighting against cancer-causing pollutants. These folks are fighting for a community where they can't, like, they're living without clean air and clean water, and it shouldn't be a privilege. Where you live shouldn't determine how long you live. And it's not just Cancer Alley. Today, residents right here in the Irish Channel in New Orleans were at the legislature fighting for clean air because of the pollution coming across the river. I'm proud to have signed the Sunrise Pledge, so I won't be accepting any contributions from the fossil fuel industry, as you mentioned, Eric. And unlike my opponent, I kept my commitment, and I have not had my pledge revoked like he did. I unequivocally support the Green New Deal, and I have the support of both co-authors, Senator Ed Markey and Congresswoman AOC. I will be a partner with Governor Edwards to secure more federal incentives so that Louisiana can be a leader in transitioning the petrochemical industry, to the question.
All right, Senator Peterson.
To wind and solar industry.
Right.
And we can create high-paying jobs by doing that.
Thank you very much. And we're now being simulcast on WWPL, so we want to welcome our viewers on WWPL to our congressional debate. Now I have a question for both of you.
Before we go, Eric, can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead quickly.
She mentioned a position that's not true. So we both have inadvertently accepted money from people that we agreed not to. I signed the pledge. She signed the pledge. We've endeavored to give that money back. She has not. And so the individuals that are clearly supporting her found a way to try and ding me by suggesting that I didn't honor my pledge.
All right, quickly, let Senator Peterson. Did you not? Did you send the money back?
Of course, I refunded it. It's all over social media. It's all through. Every article says that he didn't keep his commitment. If he didn't keep his commitment on this, he won't keep it in the future.
All right, leave it at that.
Eric,
I have a question for both of you.
She never accepted any. Now she said she gave it back. Which is it?
Troy, I'm not. It's not worth going back and forth with you. It's good to tell the truth, and you should start today.
All right, well, let's try and get to the truth from both of you.
I think the people are listening.
We have a question for both of you. Whoever wins this election, you'll be the only Democrat in the Louisiana delegation. Congressman Richmond seemed to have a good relationship with his Louisiana Republican colleagues in Congress. In fact, he was good friends, still is good friends, with Steve Scalise. How important is it to keep your principles, but still work with the other side to make sure things get done for Louisiana? And we'll start with Senator Peterson.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Eric. It's really important to recognize that it's important to work with people across the aisle when your values don't have to be compromised. Republicans, none of the Republicans from Louisiana voted for COVID recovery. Let that sink in. There are Republicans in Washington right now, including those from Louisiana, that are an impediment to protecting our democracy. Steve Scalise, unfortunately, has not yet said that the President Biden, has legitimately gotten elected. He's still supporting the Trumpisms that existed in the last administration. And so it's important for us to work together on coastal restoration, yes, on making sure that infrastructure. But the Republicans right now in Washington are not even supporting President Biden and Vice President Harris's American Jobs Plan for infrastructure. Like Louisiana doesn't need that. Of course we do. And so there will be times where I can work with Republicans, but I'm not going to compromise my values on Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, criminal justice reform, passing the George Floyd Act. And look right now, there are confirmations that we are trying to get through that can't even get through. And so I didn't ask for the support of the Trump Republicans. My opponent is supported by the Greater New Orleans Republican PAC. He's also supported by the chairman of the Trump campaign from Louisiana. I didn't solicit that support because there's not alignment in value.
All right, Senator Carter.
You know, it is so hard to sit here, and I'm sure the viewers at home are having the same pain that I am, to listen to these slogans and quips that do nothing but divide, and so many desperate lies that are just spewing like a water fountain. Here's the reality. We must work together. This divisive conversation that she has as if when one of us is elected, we're only going to represent Democrats. Listen, when you're elected to represent the entire district, Republicans, Democrats, independents, and others. I will stand for those democratic ideals that I believe in. I will fight for them to the end. But I'll also come to the table to compromise to make sure that I bring resources home to the people of Louisiana. And instead of throwing my hands up and saying the Republicans won't, I'll go to the table and try to explain to them why they should, because that's what leadership does. We come to the table, we try to work together where we can. This notion that we can't work together, so we draw a line in the sand, and Democrats are devils to Republicans, or Republicans are devils to Democrats, that's counterproductive. That's not how I've lived my life. That's not how I've governed in the last 30 years, and it's not how I'll govern in the Congress. And for my opponent to suggest that I should throw away individuals who support me, she competed for many endorsements that she didn't get. And then when she doesn't get them, they're horrible. Let me tell you what, if people are supporting me, they're supporting me because they recognize that I can get the job done. They're supporting me because they recognize I can build bridges and not tear down walls. They know that I can build bridges and accomplish the missions that are best for the people of Louisiana.
All right, and
they know that I fight for Louisiana, and I don't play a Washington word game.
And let's keep our times. Okay. I have a question from a colleague, Tyler Bridges, at our media partner, the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate, and it's about voting records. Senator Peterson, aside from the votes you missed during the last year during the pandemic, in the 4 years preceding 2016, 17, 18, and 2019, you missed 26% of the votes, including 11 of 24 abortion votes. And Senator Carter, you didn't fare a lot better. You missed 17% of the votes, including 5 of the 24 abortion votes. How do you explain the missed votes, and will your voting record change if you get to the Congress? And we'll start with Senator Carter first.
Well, the votes that you mentioned are over an aggregate period. I'm not exactly sure what they were, but my opponent missed 20 days of 24. There's a big difference between votes that are missed in a given day. Oftentimes, if it's votes that are missed, you can be in committee, you can be in the hallway talking to constituents, you can be in another committee somewhere, you can be in the ante room, you can be away from your desk. The difference here is my opponent missed 20 days, not votes, but 20 days of a 24-day session, and accepted every single penny, including per diem, the times that she didn't show up. That's patently wrong. When are you going to give that money back, Senator Peterson?
Senator Peterson, your response.
Yeah, well, the answer to your question, Eric, is I'm proud and honored to not just serve my district, but the people of our great state. And I've always fought, and people know this about me, that I've always fought for working families. I am a proud progressive advocate. I was the only one out of 144 legislators that voted against Jindal's budget that dismantled higher education and cut funding for vital services like healthcare. I was the only senator to call for automatic voter registration in response to systemic disenfranchisement by Republicans. And as your Congresswoman, that's my pledge to the people of this district. That's how I'm going to be guided. You know, the senator continues to spew untruths. My mother told me don't call people a liar, so I'm going to say that he is telling a really big whopper right now. He knows that my husband has diabetes and that I take care of my mother who lives next door to me. He knows that Black people were dying at an alarming rate, and he knows exactly why I wasn't in session, because the Republicans refused to enforce a mask mandate. This didn't just happen in Louisiana, it happened in Washington too. Again, the Republicans, there are still Republicans in the Senate and in the legislature that refuse to wear a mask. So let that sink in. And I decided that my public safety, my health and safety was a priority. And so those are the facts, Eric.
All right, thank you very much. And another question for both of you. Each of you has dealt with a very public controversy over the past few years. Senator Peterson with the gambling problem, and Senator Carter, there was a property you own that burned. It sat dilapidated for more than a year. It angered people in the neighborhood. Looking back at how each of you handled those very public controversies, what does that say about your character? And we'll start with Senator Peterson.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Eric. It's come up, and in fact, on this television station, I think you all broke the news that I'm a human being and that I have suffered for years with an addiction. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to be able to be a part of a recovery program, and it's a good thing to have a wonderful support system and family that helps you when you fall. And that is why I fight so hard for health care for all. Medicare for all would cover mental health treatment. It would cover addiction, support for addictions. I'm not unique. I'm not an anomaly. Just because I'm offering myself for public service and I have been serving, it doesn't mean I'm any different from anybody else in Louisiana that has peaks and valleys. But let me tell you this, it's not impacted my ability to lead in a bold and courageous way for the people of the state. And I look forward to doing the same thing in Washington.
Senator Carter?
Yes, but before I go, can I have just 10 seconds to respond to her earlier comment? Because she mentioned me and I need to respond.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. For you to say you didn't come to the Capitol because it wasn't safe is like a firefighter saying, I'm not going to go into a burning building because it's on fire. We were elected to do a job.
Okay, and I don't want to fight this battle anymore, but, and I understand. That's why I brought up the 4 preceding years for both of you. Go ahead and respond to the question about the personal controversy in your life.
So the personal controversy, I'll tell you, I had a property, as you mentioned, that caught fire. We have voluminous paperwork that demonstrated that we tried to get a permit. And anybody out there that's tried to get a permit from the Department of Safety and Permits or the Historic District Landmarks will know it's not easy. Now, I'm a former member of the City Council. If it was difficult for me to get a permit, what does that say to the average citizen out there? I submitted to the city multiple plans that are very, very deliberate and elaborate on how I will restore this property after a fire. The neighbors are right to be concerned that it took longer than it should have. And we certainly tried, and we're working on the property, and it's being done now. The reality is, when you're trying to get a permit, you go through a lot of red tape. We know that the Department of Safety and Permits was written up and has been in the press.
Senator Carter, if I can just ask, I want to know what that said about your character, and that's the point of that question.
It doesn't say anything. It says that I'm a human being. It says that I'm just like any other citizen in New Orleans that has to oftentimes face red tape of City Hall. So I think what it says about my character is that I tried, like many other citizens do, to do the right thing and was bombarded by the paperwork and the bureaucracy of City Hall.
All right. Now we come to the point of our debate where we're letting you two ask questions of each other. After the question is answered, the questioner can respond. The person getting the question can respond for 30 seconds. Did I make that clear? You'll ask a question, and then you respond, and then the person who asks the question can respond for 30 seconds. Go ahead, and Senator Carter, we'll let you have the first question.
Sure. Senator Peterson, we know the significance of making sure that our young people are safe, particularly in schools. We know the kind of issues we have with sexual predators in our communities. Yet there was a bill, House Bill 353, that created the prohibition of sex offenders being around schools. You were the only member who voted for it. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator Carter. I don't remember that particular bill. And so, I mean, I'm happy to follow up with you in an email and look at the bill and find out what, first of all, if it's accurate where I did. And then,
well, it's right here. It's House Bill 353. It's right here. Yeah, and your name is right there as the only member that signed it, that voted for it. It's right here. And I'd invite the public to go to House Bill 353. Yes, it would.
Okay. Would you like me to answer it? Okay. I'm not going to trust you to present information via Zoom to me. I'm happy to look at whatever legislation you're concerned about, as I do with all constituents, and I'm happy to respond to you. I'll get you an email tomorrow.
Well, don't give it to me. Give it to the public. They're the ones that deserve to have it. House Bill 353 that you voted to allow sexual predators around schools.
All right.
What you're trying to do is deceive the public as if they would think that someone who is championed for people, that I would be promoting sexual predators. And it's just, This is the character. We talked about character, and it's evidence right now that someone is trying to distort my record. You know that I'm a Christian. You know that I have values because you know my mother and my father. And so don't try to distort my record and my character to people as if I, as a Black woman in Louisiana, would stand for predators, sexual predators. I am a victim of sexual abuse. And so it is just nonsensical that you would even say something like that. And you know that.
All right.
Could we just keep it to the facts? House Bill 353. These are not
let's
motions of yours.
leave it right
Keep
there.
it when you were trying to distort them.
All right, Senator Peterson, your question for Senator Carter.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric. Senator, there's a Trump Republican PAC, the American Jobs and Growth PAC. You're raising money for it. People around you are raising money for it. That PAC is attacking me. And also the chairman of the Trump MAGA campaign contributed to you. Will you publicly denounce the PAC and ask them to take down their television and digital ads and send the money back to the Trump chairman that's supporting you? Will you send the money back, and will you denounce the PAC?
I'll answer your question if you allow me. Senator Peterson, once again, you're lying to the people. There is no money. There is no PAC that I'm supporting. The only money that I'm raising is for Troy Carter for Congress. That's what we're doing. And we've outraged you. All of our money, 90% has come from Louisiana. 90% of yours have come from Washington. And these super mega PACs that you claim you aren't taking money from, like Emily's List and others, that have spent countless thousands of dollars attacking me and distorting my record. The reality is you're angry and you're desperate, and now you're just continue to spew these falsehoods. There is no money that I'm raising for other than Troy Carter for Congress. As it relates to other people endorsing me,
can I ask a question? Did you meet with the GNOR PAC?
Sure, we met with different people. We met with, and my understanding is that my opponent did as well. She may say she didn't, but I'm going to tell you, I've met with several. I'm speaking now. I'll wait if you want to go now. But
well, I'll give you both a chance. Go ahead. Go ahead, Troy. Senator Carter.
Thank you. Thank you. We have met with several people. Listen, here's the reality. As a congressman, I have an obligation to meet with people of different parties. I don't only represent Democrats. Maybe my opponent sees it that way, but under true leadership, when you get elected, you're elected to represent all of the people. So certainly I met with various groups and different views because it's my responsibility to hear all sides. I'm proud of my record of representing all of my district, even those that I don't always agree with.
All right, we're running short of time. Senator Peterson, is it wrong to meet with Republicans?
Of course, it's not wrong to meet with Republicans, but he solicited the endorsement. I did not attend the endorsement meeting for the Greater New Orleans Republican PAC. I didn't seek money or an endorsement from the chairman of the Trump campaign in Louisiana. I am not supported by the American Jobs and Growth PAC, which is a PAC, a Republican, Trump Republican PAC based in Virginia that is attacking me right now. So if you don't believe me, just watch TV because the attacks are running right now on TV and digital. The question was, will you denounce them? He said he didn't answer. And will you return the money? He didn't answer. So I'm going to infer the answer is
quickly,
no.
Senator Carter.
Well, you can infer whatever you want, but I did answer. Maybe I didn't answer the way you liked me to answer it, but clearly I answered. And my answer was, I did not raise money for any other PAC. I only raised money for Troy Carter for Congress. I further said that I support the entire district, and unlike you, I will not be divisive and divide our city and our state and our district in half because of things that you don't like.
Last word on this issue. Senator Carter, your chance to ask another question for Senator Peterson.
Yes. In your own words, Senator, you mentioned that you authored legislation that, in essence, and I'm trying to use your words, took over the school system. In doing so, your husband got a very lucrative job, a job that many people were qualified for, many people that had master's degrees, PhDs, that had worked in the school system, that had lost their jobs under the takeover bill that you authored. The question is, what made your husband more qualified than those 7,000 teachers who lost their jobs?
Senator Peterson?
This election is about Karen Carter Peterson and not Dana Peterson. This election is about standing up for children and teachers. Consistently, I have stood for children and teachers in my career. Troy Carter and his Trump Republican friends are continuing to attack me, even though they know I've always stood up for children and teachers. Facts matter. I would never support a bill that would fire educators. I voted no on Act 35, along with Congressman Cedric Richmond. These attacks are so false. It was removed from the radio. I had to file to make sure it got removed. The Republicans and my opponents will do anything. Remember, I chaired the Democratic Party for 8 years. They will do anything to stop progress, because for them, that means that they will have to share with other people. But I will not let them lie to you. I will always fight for a quality public education system that puts our children and our teachers first. It's just not true. But it's a narrative that he wants to continue to perpetuate a couple of days before the election. And I'm just not going to let it happen, nor am I going to let him try to change the narrative and then make it about my husband. That's ridiculous.
Senator Carter, quickly.
She hasn't answered the question, what made her husband more eligible for that job than the 7,000 career teachers, career educators, PhDs, master degrees of teachers of the 7,000 that lost their job in after the bill that she authored? Why was it that her husband, given that opportunity when nobody else, there was no process, there was no job application, he simply was awarded the job? Tell me, why was he more eligible than the some 7,000 teachers that have spent their career as career professional teachers and educators and administrators? Why did your husband end up getting that very lucrative job?
Yeah, let me just quickly address it again, Eric. Yeah, just quickly. I mean, maybe Senator Carter should have asked my husband, Dana Peterson, at the Democrats for Education Reform Conference that he attended with him and took a picture with him at. Maybe you should have asked him then what made him more qualified. But my husband has worked in education. This election is about who's going to serve in Congress. It's about right versus wrong. And I've always stood with students and teachers and supported our school system. My father received, in his absence after he died, because of all of my family's history in investing in public education, because we believe that education is the key out of poverty. That is why I serve.
Senator Peterson,
listen, this is not personal. This is not against Dana. This is a question the public deserves to know. This is not personal.
I think that's all the answer you're going to get. Senator Peterson, ask your last question of Senator Carter.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Senator Carter, I guess, let me see, you keep talking about the fact that I'm lying, which is not true. But you recently broke your own pledge to the people of this district when you refused to refund these political contributions that you received from polluters. So you signed the pledge. I hope you don't deny you signed it, because you signed it. And you accepted money, whether you knew about it or not. You were then asked to refund the money, and you haven't refunded it. So if you can't keep your pledge to the people now, why should they believe that you'll keep it then? Why did you choose to side with the polluters of this district versus the people?
Well, first of all, that's absolutely, once again, untrue, and you know it is. I did sign the pledge, and I signed it again today, and it's unfortunate that they think otherwise. I signed the pledge, and when we endeavored to find people that, in fact, fell in the loop, we collect a lot of checks, we sent it back. But let me tell you how far we went. I've got a dear friend of mine who is a gas station owner who contributed to my campaign. We even gave that back in an abundance of caution. He's not a polluter. He's not a part of the petrochemical company. He owns a gas station and a commercial grocery store that happens to sell gas. He thought enough of my campaign to contribute. We went above and beyond, and we even turned that back. Although I think you could argue that that's not a polluter. You pull in, you got a nice gas guzzling SUV, you got to put a lot of gas in that thing, Senator Peterson, and you probably fill up at some of the same stations. But we gave it back anyway. But you know, the reality is you work for Denton's, one of the largest law firm that represents polluters all over this world. They represented BP against Louisiana. They represent Formosa type plants all over the country. And up until just a few weeks ago, when you decided to re-engineer yourself, you quit that job as if people wouldn't look.
Senator Carter, I hate to break off there, but I wish we had all the time in the world. We do not. We're on television, and there's a fixed time. So we're going to close out. You each have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We'll begin with Senator Carter.
First of all, Eric, thank you so much. And I'm sorry. Was it Senator Peterson?
Go ahead, Senator Carter.
My apologies. My apologies.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be with the viewers. Viewers, I invite you to check our records. I invite you to wade through the lies. I've said over and over again, I'll put my record next to my opponents 7 days a week and invite you to challenge it. www.troycarter4congress.com. I'd encourage you to go to see the positions that I've taken going forward. I invite you to see the things that I've done in the past. I'd also invite you to check all of the lies. The Times-Picayune, the Gambit, the Tribune, the Louisiana Weekly, the Gambit, they've all called out my opponent for the horrendous lies that she's talked about with criminal justice reform, with women's rights, with environmental justice, with healthcare, all of which are patented
Senator
lies.
Carter?
She's going to spend a lot of money keeping telling those lies. I'd encourage you to choose
Senator Peterson?
Honesty and integrity over deception.
Senator Peterson, you have 45 seconds.
Yeah, he seems a little discombobulated. Thanks, Eric and WWL, for hosting this debate. It's been an honor to be trusted by the people of Louisiana to fight for you in the Louisiana legislature. Right now, what I think we need in Washington is a bold and courageous leader. This election is about right versus wrong. It's wrong to stand with the oil companies while the pollution is killing our residents in Cancer Alley. It is wrong to say that you are for healthcare for all, but you don't strongly support Medicare for all. And it's wrong to say that you're for safe streets, but you won't strongly support criminal justice reforms and you support stop and frisk policies. If elected the first Black woman to represent this district, I will fearlessly fight for you, for racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and criminal justice reform, because the people of Louisiana deserve a congresswoman that won't just go along to get along with everybody, but will fight for them every single day. I pledge that I will never forget who I am, where I came from, and that I will always speak truth to power. I'll shake things up to get things done for the people of this district. Karen Carter Peterson.
Thank you. I want to thank you both for a very frank discussion, and we want to thank everybody for watching. The polls open on Saturday. Go out and vote. Good night, everybody.
In the final days of this race, my